Hey all, welcome to Spoonies United. So in the last part of the overview, we learned that your thoughts, they're not always true, and sometimes this can work against you. So notice here we have this character. He's paying attention to his thoughts. He's not stressed or fearful of his thoughts or worried about his thoughts or concerned about them. He's almost like he's curious about his thoughts. And so what he's doing is he might be paying attention to his thoughts and kind of questioning them or challenging them. And so in this part of the overview, we're going to focus on a 5-step process Tony teaches us to work through her thoughts or challenge her thoughts. So let's look at the 5-step process. So if Tony has a worry or some kind of negative thought, step 1, she asks herself, is the thought true? The second step in her 5-step process is, are you absolutely sure the thought's true? Step 3 is, how do you feel when you believe the thought? The 4th step is, what would you be like without the thought? And then the final step in her process is to come up with something called a turnaround statement. So let's go over an example. So notice here we have this person, and her mind's very busy right now. So she's having a lot of thoughts, and a lot of her thoughts might be completely false, not true at all. Now, maybe she started having symptoms and she went to the doctor. And she got some initial labs done, and they pointed to maybe a possible cancer diagnosis. And maybe she went in for a second test. This is going to be a more conclusive test to confirm whether or not she has cancer. So she's waiting on the results, and in the meantime, she's doing a bunch of Googling, and she's completely convinced herself that she has cancer and she's going to have a very poor prognosis. And so she's having all these imagined outcomes, these fear-based thoughts, where she's imagining herself going into the doctor's office and the doctor telling her she has cancer. And she's having these imagined outcomes that she's going to have to go through chemotherapy and she's eventually going to die and leave her family behind. And this is causing her great anxiety and fear because she's fully believing these thoughts. So Tony recommends going through this 5-step process. So let's see this person go through the 5-step process. So first she'll ask herself, is it true? And maybe she's convinced herself that it's true. She says, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's true based off of my research. So she asks herself, she goes through step number 2. She asks herself again, but this time she says, are you absolutely sure that it's true with 100% certainty? So she might respond, well, I'm not 100% certain. There's still a chance that I don't have cancer. And so the benefits of the first 2 steps is it allows you to determine with 100% certainty whether or not the thought is true or false. And if you determine that it's false, that can give you some relief from your current emotional state. Step 3. So the next thing this person should do is she should ask herself, how do you feel when you believe the thought? And so she might say, when I believe the thought, I'm fearful, I'm worried, I'm anxious. And so this is labeling. So we talked about labeling in a previous part of the overview, and there's benefits to labeling. So it allows you to disidentify from your thoughts, and then also kind of helps you disengage from that mental warfare. The next step that she should go through is step 4. And step 4 is, what would you be like without the thought? This person could say, hey, well, without the thought, I'm just a person in a quiet room, my hands on my head, and I'm resting. That's it. So the benefit of step 4 is it allows you to also disengage from that mental warfare and allows you to almost kind of be in the present moment And we'll talk about the benefits of staying in the present moment in the next part of this overview. The fifth and the final step is she's going to tell herself to come up with some turnaround statements. So remember, her initial worry might be that, okay, I'm going to die of cancer and be diagnosed with it. That might be her initial starting worry. So her turnaround statement could be something like the complete opposite of it. So it could be like, I might go into the doctor's office and the doctor might tell me that I'm clear. I don't have cancer. I'm fine. I'm good to go. There also could be some other possibilities as well. So maybe it's the other possibilities between her initial worry and the complete opposite of her worry. So maybe she goes into the doctor's office and the doctor says, yeah, well, we're going to diagnose you with this syndrome, but you have a good prognosis and it's very treatable. So the benefit of looking at different options and also looking at the option that's the completely opposite end of the spectrum of your initial worry is one of the benefits is it prevents catastrophic thinking. So a lot of times when we have worries about a situation, our brain goes to the worst case scenario. So when you think about the different options or the different possible outcomes, what that does is relieve some of that catastrophic thinking and the emotions associated with that catastrophic thinking. So let's look at another example of using this 5-step process. So Tony uses her own example. So we're going to actually use Tony's example in this scenario. So Tony would have this recurring thought, I hate being sick. So let's look at the 5 steps that Tony went through to address her thought, I hate being sick. So step 1, she asked herself, is it true? And she said, well, yeah, it's true. Step 2 is, are you absolutely sure it's true? And she said, yeah, I'm absolutely sure that it's true. Step 3, she asked herself, how do you feel when you believe the thought? And she said, I'm frustrated. So she was labeling. Step 4, she then asked herself, what would you be like without the thought? And she said, well, I'd be a person laying in bed in this comfortable and peaceful room. And she said that gave her some peace and comfort because it gave her a split second to feel what it was like without the thought. And then finally, she went to step 5. So her initial thought was, I hate being sick. So she came up with a list of reasons why she didn't hate being sick. And this was kind of a weird process to go through for her. But she ended up listing out like 12 different things that was good about her having this illness. So she said, well, I get to spend a lot more time with my cat. I get a lot more time to rest. My to-do list is much shorter. I get a lot more time to bond with my daughter. This illness has given me the opportunity to get in touch with Buddhism. And so again, she listed out about 12 different things. So this takes me to the second benefit of using these turnaround statements. One thing I said is it helps with catastrophic thinking. The other thing is I feel like it helps you see the complete picture. So often people tend to focus on what's missing, what's wrong. So notice here we have a very complete picture, but you might just be focusing on that missing piece, the red background of that missing puzzle piece. So when you do these turnaround statements, what it does is it helps you see the entire picture of your situation, the good and the bad. Now, the one thing that's really important to me, I don't want to minimize what people have been through with their physical health challenges. So there has been tragic situations and people's challenges has taken away a lot from their lives. And so that's what this puzzle represents right here. So I like to think of it as the middle part of the puzzle is everything that your physical challenges has taken away from you. Maybe it's a lot, maybe it's a little, but it has taken away things from your life potentially. The red outside, the pieces, to me, that represents what you still have in your life. And so we'll talk a little bit about this later, but I think it's also beneficial to be grateful for what you still have in your life. Now, when you do things like turnaround statements, the way I like to think of it is, it helps you replace some of those missing pieces. It's not going to replace everything. So, for example, Tony's illness has been devastating probably in her life, right? It's taken away a lot of things. It's taken away her profession. It's taken away her going to events, taken away some of the hobbies and things she likes to do. And that's all the white. That's all the white part of this puzzle, things that her illness has taken away. When she does her turnaround statement, though, she acknowledges some of the things that it's brought into her life, some things that are good. And maybe that allows her to fill in a few white parts of that puzzle. It's not going to allow her to completely fill it back up. But the benefit of, I would say, being grateful for what you still have, acknowledging what life has taken from you, the white part of the puzzle, and then filling in maybe just 1, 2, or 3 parts of that puzzle with some of the new things in your life that are good, can give you a healthy overview of your entire situation. And instead of just focusing on the white part, you're focusing on the entire puzzle. And this goes back to something we talked about previously. When you change your perception, you could change your perception about your situation. That's going to change the way you think, you feel, and act. And almost it can happen instantaneously. So Tony says that you have the ability to kind of almost rewire your brain if you continue to go through this 5-step process and practice also some of the other things that she covers in her book that I previously covered in some of the other parts. So I encourage you to not be afraid of your thoughts, to be curious like this character, and challenge those thoughts. Go through that 5-step process. It might change the way you see your life, and it might add little pieces of your puzzle to things that might be currently missing. In the next part of the overview, we're going to talk about the benefits of living in the present moment.